Hello there, welcome to Lesson 2 of Unit 3 Factoring. This is in our Grade 10 Academic Math class. So we're moving past common factoring now into one of the new strategies that we're going to employ when we consider factoring multiple terms. In this case, the lesson is called Factoring Simple Trinomials. Now a trinomial obviously has 3 terms. And when we use the word simple, factoring a simple trinomial, as it says right down here in the explanation, it is a trinomial that looks like this, where the a value is equal to 1. So it would be 1x squared, or just x squared, and then the b and the c can be whatever. That's what dictates if a trinomial is simple or not. So when we talk about factoring simple trinomials, let's consider the fact that factoring is the opposite of expanding. So as a way of sort of examining how we're going to go about factoring simple trinomials, we're actually going to start by expanding out two binomials. So let's have a look at this first little piece right here. Now I've already got it filled in for you, but if you look at it, it says x plus 5, x minus 7, both of those are in brackets. If we were to expand those out and simplify, we would end up with this guy down here, x squared minus 2x minus 35. And what you'll notice is that the way that we got here was by multiplying all 4 of the terms in those two binomials by each other. So x times x gave us this x squared down here, and this negative 7 times this positive 5 gave us this negative 35 down here. And that this middle term, this negative 2, is a combination of multiplying this x by this negative 7 and this 5 by this x. That negative 7 and this plus 5 combined together, those were our like terms, they combined together to give us our negative 2. Why am I telling you this? This is going to be part of our thinking as we go about working in the other direction. Because here we started with two binomials and we expanded them out to come up with a trinomial. The process that we're going to employ today is how do we start from this guy and head back up to the two binomials that started it all. Let's look at another expanded version first. Nope, I'm lying to you. We're going to actually go through right here what I just said, which was the way that we can predictively look at the contents of these brackets. So x times x will lead us to our x squared. Now this is the part here, this part that says sum and product. The two numbers that we have in the brackets at the end, the plus 5 and the negative 7, they do two things. The first thing they do is they have to multiply together to give us our negative 35. And then we need to add them together in order to get negative 2. If they can do both of those things, then those are the numbers that we want to have in our brackets. Sounds a little bit crazy. Let's work through one in the proper direction and we'll see how this looks. So this paragraph here just basically says, in summary, when you're looking for the factors of simple trinomials, you're trying to find the things that add to or make the sum of our b value, that's the number in front of the x or linear term, and that multiply to c, which is our constant term. But never mind that. Let's get right to one of the examples here. So here's our first example. We have x squared plus 11x plus 30. So we know that if we're going to try to factor this simple trinomial, again it's simple because the coefficient out in front of the squared term is a 1. So if we're going to try to factor this thing, we need two numbers that multiply to plus 30, but that add to plus 11. So what I've done over here, and again, once you're good at this, you don't have to follow this particular procedure by writing it out, but I'm going to write it out today because this is kind of the first time we're doing it. If we take a positive 3 and a positive 10, and we can multiply those together to get plus 30, we could take positive 2 times positive 15, multiply those two together to get 30, and we have positive 6 and positive 5 that multiply together to give us 30. So one of these combinations, when we add them together, will also give us this b value that we're looking for here in the middle, this positive 11. So 3 and 10, that gives us 13, 2 and 15 gives us 17, 6 and 5, however, give us our positive 11. So we put the two numbers that we think are correct right here. And how did we know that each of these brackets is going to start with an x? Well, it's because we have an x squared here, and x times x will give us our x squared. So that's sort of the thinking behind how to factor a simple trinomial. Let's look at another worked example before we start going through some of the examples on our own. Here's another worked example. We have x squared minus 3x minus 28. So we're going to try to factor this simple trinomial. Again, simple because there's an invisible 1 out in front of our x squared term right there. So I want two numbers that multiply to 28 but that add to negative 3. Okay, so this is interesting because this time we have a negative value for c and a negative value for b, which means that if we think about it, the factors that we choose to go in our brackets, one's got to be positive and one's got to be negative because the product is going to be negative. We have a negative 28, we need two numbers, one positive, one negative. We're also going to take advantage of the fact that one of them's positive and one of them's negative, and we recognize that the negative number in our pairing will have to be bigger because when we combine them, our result is actually going to be negative 3. So we could have worked through all the examples that we could think of, but in this case we have negative 7 and positive 4. When multiplied together give us negative 28, and when added together gives us negative 3. So we then go about copying the plus 4, the negative 7, and the x's we know are out the front because this was an x squared. Now right beside this, again, like I said in the first lesson on common factoring, what's nice about this is you can expand back out the binomials that you've found to be your factors, just as a way of seeing if you got the right answer. So there's a little check. You can copy it down or you can actually do the check on your own, but expanding that out results in x squared minus 3x minus 28, which is the trinomial that we started with. Okay, let's do some actual math on our own here. So we have x squared plus 5x minus 50. Okay, so we are looking for the thing that's going to multiply to negative 50, but that is going to add to positive 5. So we're going to run through the factors in our heads. We can try to figure some of these out. Maybe I'll write them out here one more time. So if we're talking about 50, negative 50, we could consider, well, we could consider 50 and negative 1. We can consider negative 50 and positive 1. We could consider 25 and negative 2. And negative 25 and positive 2, we could do 5 and negative 10, or negative 5, positive 10. So we're looking for the combination of these. I hope I didn't miss any. I think that's all of them. They come out to integers anyway. We want the combination that's going to lead us to positive 5. So as we go down the list and we find that our negative 5, positive 10, those are going to be the factors that we're after. So by discovering this, it's actually, once you kind of get past the figuring out what the factors are piece, putting it together is actually fairly straightforward. So these are going to be the two binomials. The brackets are going to begin with x's because we had an x squared here. The two values that we decided worked to multiply to negative 50 and add to positive 5 were plus 10 and negative 5. And there's your factors right there. Again, I encourage you all the time, if you're not sure, to expand this out and check. We're not going to do that today just in the spirit of moving things along, but that's the thinking behind how to do it. And again, you don't have to write out this comprehensive list of all the things that multiply to negative 50. If it helps you, by all means, but if it doesn't, you can certainly leave that step out. Okay, here we go. X squared minus 10x plus 25. So as before, we're looking for the thing that multiplies to plus 25 and adds to negative 10. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one here for a moment. And what I want you to do is try to figure out the two factors that multiply to plus 25 and add to negative 10. So why don't you pause this video, see if you can finish this question up, and if you're all done, unclick pause and come back and we'll see what we get. Hopefully you've paused and returned. So the two factors that are going to multiply to positive 25 and add to negative 10 are negative 5 and negative 5. And again, just so we know, this x, or these x's here, come because this is a single x squared, and those two negative 5s. Now what's interesting is these two binomials are identical, so the most factored way to then write it when you have two identical binomials is x minus 5 whole bracket squared. That's the most efficient way to write it down. Alright, let's keep moving. We're going to get to the end of the page before we end this video. Here we have x squared minus x minus 90. So again, just to keep repeating it, we want to find the thing that multiplies to negative 90 and that adds to, now it looks invisible, but it's a negative 1 there. So what are the two factors? Again, why don't you guys try this one? Hit pause here. Come on back when you think you got an answer, and I'll talk you through the rest of the question. Okay, here we go. So we know that the brackets are going to start with x's because this is an x squared. We need two numbers that multiply to -90 and add to -1. Those will be -10 and +9. So those are our answers. Again, expand it out, simplify it, make sure that you get what you started with, but that's the answer to E here. And let's try one more before we're all done. Oh my goodness, this is the big one. Okay, so we've got x squared plus 301, x plus 300. So we're looking for the thing that multiplies to plus 300 and that adds to plus 301. Okay, same thing here. Hit pause, see if you can figure it out. When you got it, come on back and we'll see how you did. Okay, here we go. As we've been doing and as we know, that x squared tells us these brackets are going to each begin with an x, and we have plus 300 as one of our factors and plus 1 as our other factor. Bit of a fake out there with the big number in the middle, but that's how you do factoring for simple trinomials. I'm going to stop the video here, and then I'm going to move on to part 2 where we look at dealing with common factors that you can factor out before you have a simple trinomial. We'll see you soon.